What is up? It is Ethan with Threewind Sports, and today I wanted to get back on the YouTube grind and start talking about NBA basketball again. No better time to talk about it than now. We're in the NBA Finals. I didn't cover the conference finals as much as I would have liked because we did record the first podcast, and I know I didn't get it up on YouTube like I said I would. It's a whole deal because I recorded it with my phone because I don't have a nice camera yet. But it is out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But I did record it with my phone, the visual version, and it's 50 minutes, and it's just not coming through my computer from my phone. So I'm gonna have to get an actual camera probably before that starts actually working, like on YouTube. But we'll see. I mean, I might be able to get it up. The second episode, I think we're going to be recording later today. So that's the deal with where I'm at. But I wanted to get back on the grind of talking about NBA basketball and in particular game recaps, especially these games, which are the most important games of the year because it is the NBA Finals and it's the Bucks versus the Suns. I'm sure you know that already. But the first game did happen last night. It was an interesting game to say the least. It wasn't the most entertaining finals game I've ever watched, but it wasn't horrible. It was very good from one half of the teams, but the other half struggled, especially late. But we'll talk about that. Do I talk about the winners or the losers first? I guess I'll talk about the winners first because there's actually less to talk about the Suns than the Bucks because the Bucks were very confusing. As for the Suns, they played a very well-rounded game, a very team-oriented game. Uh, Several of their players were in double digits, and their top three guys all put up good numbers. They were led by Chris Paul, who this is his first NBA Finals game ever in his entire 16-year career. This is his first time ever touching an NBA Finals floor, and he really showed out. 32 points, 9 assists. He was a big night for the guy, and he's just gonna abuse this Bucks defense all series unless Budenholzer changes stuff. And Budenholzer changing things isn't a theme that we usually see. So I assume that Chris Paul will continue to beat up on this Bucks defense all series. What he does is he either gets a screen or he just rolls around a guy and gets his body in front of him and takes that mid-range jumper over Brook Lopez over and over and over again because Brook is standing so far deep in the paint on drop coverage that by the time Brook gets up there to contest a shot, it's already up. Chris Paul's already in full motion, and he's going to make the shot 9 out of 10 times because he's been in the league so long, and that's his shot, and he plays at such a slow pace. It's not physically demanding. He can do it all game long, and he did that, and he ended up with 32 points. Obviously, he got some of that from the free throw line, and he got some of that from different spots, but his main weapon is that mid-range shot that you really can't stop unless you're absolutely in his face the entire time, and he's very good at basketball, obviously, so he's good at not making you in it, getting you out of his face, and getting to the guy who's the farthest away from him, who is Brook Lopez in this game, who is so far under the basket that it just wasn't going to work for the Bucks. Devin Booker put up a good game, 27 points, I think. And, when Chris Paul's dropping 32, Devin Booker doesn't have to go out there and drop 40. 27 is completely fine for Devin. And the team again. I'm gonna talk about the free throw situation in a minute, but they were making their free throws. Devin was making his free throws, so that's all that matters really. Whenever you're given that opportunity to go out there and make your free throws, DeAndre Ayton had a big game. I can't 100% tell who's the more dominant center in this series between Ayton and Brook Lopez. They're both very good at what they do. They're not elite of elite centers, but they're very solid, borderline all-star. I think Brook Lopez would still be an all-star if he was on a bad team, and I think Ayton's going to get there eventually. So, yeah, borderline all-star guys, and they're both very dominant in what they do. Brook is very strong in the paint and also has a very solid outside jumper. Obviously, we know that by now. He's probably one of the best three-point shooting big men in the league. And then Ayton obviously is very quick, agile, is a big lob threat, and also pretty strong in the paint. They're both pretty good on defense. Not great, not elite defenders, but they're both pretty good, and they're both big guys. But I say Ayton probably had the better game tonight. I think more because the Bucks didn't feed Brook as much as they probably should have. But Ayton probably had the better game tonight. I think he finished with 22 points, 19 rebounds, which is a huge game, almost a 20-20 double-double, which is huge for the guy. And if he keeps putting up numbers like that, then he doesn't need to do anything more than that. I mean, really, if he's putting up numbers like that, the Suns are going to win this finals. And I don't think it's going to be a huge competition because I just don't see the consistency from the Bucks guys to be able to put up big numbers like how the three in Phoenix are putting up, even though they should be because technically they are probably the better three. but they just something about them just doesn't mesh. Anything else about the Suns? No, I mean they're role playing guys. The funniest stat I think I saw was that Jay Crowder only had 1 point in the entire game, and like watching the game, you probably didn't think he played that great, and yet he had the highest plus minus on the entire floor because that's just how he is. He's a great role player, probably one of the best role players in the league, and he's just an impact guy, and he'll do that all game, all series long, and he's been doing it for his entire career. Let me think. I think that's all I got for the Suns. From here on, as long as they protect that mid-range game, that's all they really need to do and keep. If they can let one out of the three guys from Milwaukee go off every night and keep the other two at bay, I think they got this series. Milwaukee, they are very confusing. Um, and I know there was some questions going into this. Would Giannis even play? Of course, he is very good at basketball, and he's a very competitive guy. He's going to be one of the greatest of all time. Like top, I think he has top 10 potential. He'll definitely be top 20 in my opinion. So he's the kind of guy that's going to go out there hurt and put up big numbers, and he did just that. I'll talk about him in a second because I want to talk about Drew Holiday first because I'm very disappointed in him. He just didn't have a very good game. And listen, I know everyone's going to have their bad games. No one is perfect. But you are the number one defender on the perimeter for this team and probably the one or two number one perimeter defender in the league. You can't let Chris Paul go for 32. You just can't let him go for 32. And you can't only get 10 points of your own when you're an offensive threat like you are. It just was a rough game for Drew. There's not much to say. He needs to do more than what he did in this game if the Bucks have any chance of winning the finals. Um, and I'm talking about probably 20 plus points per game, and keeping Chris as far away from like 25 plus as possible, and trying to at least get like in his grill a little bit when he's going for those mid range shots, and not giving him so many trips to the line. Oh, before I go back to Milwaukee, I'm gonna regress a second and talk about the line because I don't have a horse in this race. I don't care who wins. I think both teams have very good stories, and both teams have a guy whose legacy is going to be drastically changed depending on if they win this or not. Those guys being CP3 and Giannis. So I don't really care who wins this finals. I think as long as it's good basketball, that's all I want to see. But the free throw disparity was a little concerning. I know you can say teams aren't always going to have even free throws. And even if they did, the Suns went out there and made 25 out of 26, while the Bucks were only capable of hitting 9 out of 16. But it just felt a little one-sided, and they were in Phoenix, so it's not crazy to believe they could have got that home court advantage from the referees. It was a little bit concerning. It's a contact sport. The free throw number should be relatively similar, and I'm talking about probably within 4 to 6 difference, not 9 or 10. I think if once you get to a double-digit difference, and this one was 9, no, 26, no, it was 10. It was 10. So I think once you get to a double-digit difference in free throws, then something's not 100% right because it is a contact sport. Both teams are hitting each other the exact same amount, whether you like it or not. Neither of these teams are incredibly beating up on teams to where they're giving the other team a ton more free throws than they should be getting, like some teams are. No, neither of these teams are like that. They should be getting pretty close to the same amount of free throw attempts. But that's just the beauty of CP3 and his ability to draw fouls, as well as him giving Devin Booker a lot of ticky-tack, stupid fouls that I saw. That was kind of, I didn't really like that. There was one early on Bryn Forbes where he didn't even touch him. He was straight up, didn't even touch Devin Booker, and they whistled. And it was kind of rough, and it was pretty obvious, and it was early in the game. You don't do that. Back to Milwaukee. I'm not going to talk a bunch about Chris Middleton. The only thing I want to talk about Chris Middleton in is that he takes the hardest shots available. He's a notorious hard shot taker, and he's a pretty good hard shot maker, but still, I feel like he would be a big guy for this team, like bigger than he is now, if he chose to take the easier shot. I know it's crazy to think about. He takes the hardest shot possible, and like there was one play where he was behind the 3-point line, and he actually did make the shot, and there was just a guy right up in his face. I mean, like up in his face. Like it probably was a foul. They didn't call a foul, It's probably knowing that it's probably Jay Crowder, may have been Mikal Bridges. Um, Chris Middleton makes a three, but I think he still had his dribble, and I don't think he used it. And I think he just sat there, let the guy get as close as possible, and then just chucked a three. Somehow made it. I don't think that's gonna fare well. You know, those are low percentage shots. So it isn't very efficient, and efficiency is a big key to winning in the NBA Finals. This is a do or die moment, and I think taking shots that are the opposite of that are probably not the smartest decision. But he still had a pretty good game. When he had 29 points, it was a pretty good game for the guy. So I'm not going to talk about a lot about him, and I think he did what he needed to do. He was the number one guy for the Bucks tonight. Giannis, very good, very good to see him. Very glad to see him healthy, or at least seemingly healthy. He looked pretty good. The only thing that has me questioning that is he looked a little timid at times driving to the hoop. You know, that dude usually bulldozes straight through defenses. That's what he's known for. But in this game, he didn't do it as much, and he settled for a couple of jumpers that I didn't like. He didn't settle for a ton, like where he goes up and down and shoots a bunch of threes. He did make one three. I think he may have made more than one three. I remember seeing only one three. Um, but in the end, he did look a little timid. He only had 20 points, which for anybody else is probably a pretty good game. But for Giannis in the NBA Finals, is probably not the best game. He had 17 rebounds? Yeah, 17 rebounds. And so he had a good game for people not even thinking he was going to play because of the hyperextension in his knee. But at the same time, if you're going to go out there and play, we may need a little bit more from you. The rebounding is fine. You don't have to get a ton of assists, but, a higher point total. And, dude, just run in there and get fouls. A big reason for the foul or free throw disparity was because he wasn't driving in and drawing as many fouls. You saw it late. He did do it more often when they were making their final push that failed. And he did get calls. Like, he's going to get calls. He's a two-time MVP. He's going to get calls more often than not. He needs to do it more often than not. So, the issue for him right now is his health. And as long as he stays healthy, he'll be a positive in the series for the Bucks. But I think he needs to do more than he did in last night's game. And I think it all boils down to Mike Budenholzer, who, again, I don't like, and I think he's probably the worst coach in the playoffs every single year. Somehow the guys have been able to carry him to the finals this year, but for the most part, I wouldn't rely on him to be my coach in the finals. However, it's important right now that he makes a change. He usually doesn't. He's a guy that likes to stick to his guns, and a lot of times his guns jam. So we'll see. What he really needs to focus on is Giannis playing aggressive, and also them taking away the CP3 mid range, the Devin Booker mid range as much as possible. Obviously, you aren't going to be able to totally eradicate that, but take it away as much as possible. That's what's important. I think those are all my thoughts I have on the game. It was a good game. Hopefully, we see a little bit better on Thursday. But yeah, thank you for watching. And I'll try to be back for every single game in the finals. If I don't, then that's my bad. I'm pretty busy. But and we'll try to get the podcast out on YouTube as much as we can. But until then, you can catch it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.